Alright, just finished my sesh. Got 300 for 2 in for the deads and moved on to my bench, which I haven't done for a week. So I'm doing bench once a week, progressively overloading, and each week I've gone up by around 2.5. So I started off with 140 for 5, and then the week after I did 142.5 for 4, and then a set of 2, I believe. And this week I did 145 for 4 pretty easily. So happy with that, good result. A lot of you guys are here for one reason and one reason only, and that is some deadlift tips. What are the first steps of building a good deadlift? So rule number 1, safety. Safety is everything when it comes to lifting. Deadlift, I always ensured that I was being safe, and when things weren't feeling right, I would back off and go with a lighter weight or cease to lift. Your spine is bones, discs, and these discs allow your spine, your bone structure, to move back and forward, and they also stabilize the discs. The bones stabilize the discs within the spine, and when there are shear forces, what might happen is the bones might slip off these discs, or the discs might slip between those bones, and you will hurt your lower back or your upper back. And majority of deadlifting related injuries aren't from thoracic flexion, and mostly because of lumbar flexion. All right, let's start with upper back. So what happens with your upper back when you're training deadlifts? With a curved thoracic spine, you are essentially opening up your hips a little bit further in order for you to start pulling the weight with open hips. And in doing so, you're pulling from a position, if you were pulling with a straight upper back, from a higher position. So you'll essentially be doing a rack pull. But what happens at the end of the lift is your upper back must be powerful enough to overcome the weight and bring your spine back into a neutral position. And how do you do that? Well, 1, deadlifting heavy and deadlifting with good volume at the start, especially when you're beginning, because a lot of people at the beginning of powerlifting these days, they don't have a solid muscular build. And I'll tell you guys right now that when I started lifting, I did so for 2 years, purely bodybuilding, and I've been this size since 2013, 2014, right? And it took me 2 years to get to the size that I am. So I'm not a massive guy, right? But I used that muscular base and I worked off it to build my strength. So I got to a size which I was happy with and went from there. How you make your upper back stronger is from a lot of rows, deadlift volume, rack pulling, and making sure that you're doing so with hypertrophy rep ranges. So I'm talking around 3x8, 4x12 if you go a bit lighter, to burn out that muscle, and making sure that you're programmed correctly. And I recommend you guys go online and look up some bodybuilding programs or get a coach and build up from there. My second tip for today, or second segment of deadlift safety, is a safe lower back. So how do you keep your lower back safe? You keep your lower back safe from bracing your core and having your muscular system when you have no belt, to stabilize your spine, to keep the discs from moving laterally. Think about this from a engineering perspective, right? From a mechanical perspective. When your spine is in motion, or when your body is in motion, what stabilizes your spine? 1, your muscular system, so your core, your abs obviously, and your lumbar spine. And when you brace all those, it creates a rigid structure around your spine, which prevents the individual parts of your spine from moving sideways and being separated from each other. And what happens when you're pulling a weight and your muscles can't overcome that weight? They start to weaken. They start to ease off. And what happens then? What's going to stabilize your spine when your muscles can't overcome that weight? Your spine itself. And when your spine tries to stabilize itself, what's going to happen? It's going to start falling apart because it's not designed to do that. It can only overcome a certain amount of force before it starts to fall apart. So what do you add to this in order to ensure safety? You wear a belt. Simple as that. And I seldomly pull without a belt because I can't afford to get injured. And if you're really strong without a belt and you have a really strong core, good on you. But I value my lower back, and I haven't been injured ever deadlifting. So I recommend getting a very high quality belt because that is an investment on yourself and your lifting future. Because when you injure your back, that's it. Your progress. I've seen people never reach their potential because of a lower back injury, and their other lifts decline as well because it's a fear that sticks in the back of your mind of getting that injury again, you know? And what helps when you introduce a belt to your lifting? When you pull in air and you tighten your core, it applies pressure against the belt or force against the belt. And what happens when you apply force against something? It applies force back, which creates a even more rigid structure around your core where your lumbar spine sits. This pressure in your core is going to be built up by you bracing that belt. And when you're pulling the weight, that pressure is going to maintain pretty constant even when the weight slows down until you let go of your breath. So the likelihood of you sustaining a back injury is a lot less, and that's why a lot of people lift with a belt. And because you have a stronger core in that circumstance, obviously you can lift a lot more weight. And what happens when you can lift a lot more weight? You get stronger. And that's another fundamental which I'll go over in the next video. And it has to do with equipment. It has to do with how you can lift comfortably and heavy all the time, which makes you stronger. And a lot of people forget about lifting comfortably, and they lift with calibrated plates all the time, and they're beating their joints and their body up. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll answer any questions you guys have in the comment section below. If I think it's a really good question, I'll answer it in my next video. But yeah, be strong, be notorious, be Barbell Crew. The hoodies are out.